You're hot. I'm not even centered. Am I centered properly, fam? Do I look good? How's my hair? Does my purple shirt show? Hi, welcome back to the CONVO couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here. No, I'm not. I got.
And I'm Fiorella. Jesus Christ.
And Oz is on the one. What?
I try to have a professional show with Pasta, and it's impossible because he thinks, first of all, Pasta, this is an AM wake up. Okay, you don't just get to do all sorts of shenanigans that you do. You're allowed to do that with Steve. You are not allowed to do that here under this theocracy that the CONVO couch is run on.
Sorry,
okay? There are orders, there's rules, there's professionalism involved.
And there's obviously rulers here. There's more of an authoritarian way over here. Sorry.
I mean, it kind of has to be when people are so unruly and they don't know how to be civilized. Sometimes you have to have a firm hand, fam. And so, unfortunately, with people like Oz, I don't really have to. But with people like you, well, it's a whole other story. So here we are, live from Moscow. I am here today. I was at RT earlier. It was fun. Good time.
What did you do today?
I just did a little bit of studio work. Stuff. I'll be doing more as I think, but yes, it's exciting. I did last week. I did a thing, and yeah, we're just working on stuff. But it was good. It's good. It's really great. It's really great to see just how much work we do by ourselves, the three of us, and how much work Johnny did. I sent him a picture of all the engineers at RT behind the scenes, and he was like, "See, told you." And Oz wants a raise now. Yeah, because he's doing the work of like 20 engineers. But it's okay. We're doing the work of like a lot of people in two people. So it's a lot. But it's good. It's good. It's actually just having done this makes it so much easier, to be honest. So it's, you do some things that are of value, and I appreciate you.
Fam, don't give me any compliments, okay? I'm just not used to it. So
you say I never compliment you, and then you cry.
Never give positive reinforcement.
So please.
Thank you. I'm blushing.
I do give positive reinforcement. You are so wrong. I give positive reinforcement to a lot of people. You just demand so much. You're so needy with this positive reinforcement.
You ask the audience right now when the last time you gave me a compliment and they recognized it. You let me know, and we'll see. That's got to be a first for a long time. So even our audience can tell it's okay. Like, some people are harder to impress than others. Some people don't pat you on the back for doing things you're supposed to be doing. I get that. You know what I'm saying? Those are people who've always motivated me more in my life, have been those people. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I'm one of those people who just, I'm all about positive reinforcement, but that's also because I have a lot of other things to say. I'm a high maintenance, and, so that's why, when Oz can probably agree with this too as well, is that I'll give positive reinforcement, but then I'll always have a but and say, can we move and grow in this way? So I guess that, the reason why I give so much, positive reinforcement is because I'm such a pain in the ass on the other end. So, we're all built differently, right?
Sam, you're just very American. And I think the Russians would have a field day with you. With all your, yes, you're just very American. You're very loud. You're very boisterous. You're overly smiley. You're overly affectionate. That's the Italian, though. I think that the
Italian American. Southern Italian.
Russians do not give that whole over positive reinforcement. They just don't. It's actually great. I freaking love it. It's just very to the point and blunt and I love it. So maybe I'm Russian on all the stereotypes. They're very nice people. So anyway, fam, we do have a show. It is 10 o'clock for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on right now, a lot going on. And of course, we're going to talk about Roe v. Wade. I wanted to do a thing on Roe v. Wade last night, but my internet wasn't working. I should have better internet tomorrow. So it will be great. I will finally, I've started moving in today into my apartment, but I still have to be here right now. But yeah, it'll be great. And I'll be able to do more stuff over there. But fam,
we have a huge section though today on it. Though.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm not gonna double do it. I'm just saying I wanted to do it earlier.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So let's talk a little bit about let's talk a little bit about what is going on with Europe, because actually this morning I was sort of talking about it a little bit. Basically, what's happening is the EU is trying to blame Russia for the grain crisis, is trying to blame Russia for the economic downfall. And now they're attacking Russia's gold. And they're saying that, Russia is going to go down because this is a way to do it. Anthony Blinken, of course, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken came out and said that they're going to continue that Russia needs to suffer, and that what they're doing is they're holding captive Europe and the rest of the world, even though that's not true. And we're going to go over how that's not true. So in particular, we've seen Claire Daly speak out against this, and we're going to play her video because she is fire. Aletho News said, went kind of deep on this and talked about how the UK is doing its best to stir a food crisis while pinning the blame on Russia, right? And so we can go ahead and put that on the screen, the first part. And again, like I said, possibly you're going to have to do some reading. I'm going to be able to do some of it, but basically, they said they're blaming the global food crisis on Russia, and the Telegraph claimed that Western officials. Yeah, why don't you read it? Because
so this is the letter that says the UK is doing its best to stir a food crisis while pinning the blame on Russia. Vladdy-daddy. Russia's special operation in Ukraine may cause a 2-year global food crisis, even if the standoff ends tomorrow, the Telegraph claims, citing Western officials. They insist that exporting grain trapped in Ukraine is the remedy, while remaining mute about West sanctions paralyzing large food exports from Russia to third world countries. That was from the Aletto News. You want me to read the next part? Or you want to make some comments on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next part says
just continue.
We are very clear that this grain crisis is urgent, that it needs to be solved within the next month. Otherwise, we could see devastating consequences, UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss told the press on June 23rd. The ongoing conflict has disrupted production, causing global food prices to soar to record levels, claims the Telegraph. In particular, wheat prices increased to an average of 56.2 in May 2022, above their value last year, according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, fam.
Right. So, again, Liz is blaming Russia for all of this. But what's really happening, and what will be discussed later, is the fact that Vladimir Putin has said if they start demining these ports, Russia will allow transportation of this grain. And by the way, the only reason this is happening is because of the sanctions being placed on Russia. And the sanctions being placed on Russia are actually hurting Europeans and Americans more. So that's what's happening. And Oz, if you can put the next one up, that would be great. Fully up, just full screen, not us on the screen.
Well,
is it up?
Yep.
Okay. If you can read it.
Nevertheless, the Kiev authorities continue to do everything possible to evade interaction with representatives of foreign states and ship-owning companies in resolving the issue of ensuring the safe exit of blocked ships, according to the MOD.
Ministry of Defense, yeah.
Yeah. Next one.
Oh, yep.
Turkish Foreign Minister Cavusoglu told Anadolu Agency last month that the major obstacles hindering grain exports are mines placed by the Ukrainian military in the Odessa water area, as well as Western sanctions slapped on Russian ships in terms of insurance, the provision of services at international ports, fam.
Right. So as I said, it is that is preventing the transportation of these grains. And together, Russia and Ukraine are the largest exporters of grain, although Russia is much larger than Ukraine. So basically what they're doing is they're exaggerating how much of a hold Ukraine has, and in comparison to how much actually Russia has. And they're doing this in order to blame Russia and Putin, again, just the same way that Joe Biden is blaming Putin for the price hikes on oil and for the just all of the problems in the US, essentially. And people started figuring this out, of course. Until now, everything, of course, is about Roe v. Wade, which is a whole other point that I'm going to make on the next section.
So it says together, Ukraine and Russia produce about a third.
I think we have two more, yeah.
Traded in the global markets, fam. Together it says Ukraine and Russia produce about a third of the wheat traded in the global markets. And the next one says, I don't know how much of it you want me to read, but it says the world produces about 800 million tons of grain of wheat per year. Now we are told that Ukraine is ready to export 20 million tons compared to the 800 million tons the world market is about 2.5 of that figure. But if we proceed from the fact that the wheat makes up nearly 20% of the total food supply, and this is the reality, these are not figures, but those of the UN. This means that these 20 million tons of Ukraine wheat make up about 0.5%, the Russian president told a broadcaster. So they're pretty much saying, fam, that the food crisis that they're trying to pivot and say is on Russia, really the math doesn't add up on what actually the Ukraine produces and what they can get out. Can you hear me?
Right, exactly. I can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So that's essentially what they're saying is like they're exaggerating the hold of Ukraine over grain when it's really Russia that's providing it. And of course, Russia is being hurt by these sanctions and these waters that obviously have mines. And so Vladimir Putin said that they're ready to ensure the passage of the ships with grain into these international waters as long as they help demine these waters. So let's go ahead and play the video of Vladimir Putin really stating the obvious here.
Готова обеспечить свободный проход судов с зерном в международные воды, если, конечно, украинские военные разминируют порты отгрузки и близлежащую акваторию.
So he said it clearly, right? Now, obviously, Ukraine, the EU are completely ignoring that. They're pretending that none of that is happening. They're basically just continuing on their tactic of just blaming Russia in spite of what we see really happening, right? And another thing that happened recently was the G7 summit. And in the summit, of course, they were just hyper focused on blaming Russia, but also on committing to providing indefinite support to Ukraine. They said, we will continue to provide financial, humanitarian, military, and diplomatic support and stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. And this was, of course, according to a text and a statement given to Bloomberg. Now, what is as long as it takes? What does that mean? What are you talking about as long as it takes? What exactly are you fighting for when you have essentially already lost conflict, billions and billions? I think we just approved millions, and then after billions more to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And so that is what the G Summit was focused on. G7 Summit, it wasn't focused on much else.
What they're saying is they're pretty much intend to make it a proxy war all the time, like a constant like Vietnam situation where they're going to constantly fund the Ukrainians, despite any type of land that's recognized from the separatist movement and whatnot, Luhansk and Donetsk. They're going to still provide, no matter what, weapons and aid and all this, no matter what. Just so there'll always be a proxy war on Russia's border. Pretty much. Because it looks as like they're trying to weaken them.
Yeah, well, so... Yeah, exactly. And they're just creating this perception. That's what they're focused on, creating this whole PR agenda. And they continue talking about saying, as we do so, we commit to demonstrate global responsibility and solidarity, that word, through working to address the international impact of Russia's aggression, especially on the most vulnerable. So this is what they did at the G7 summit. It's no surprise to anything and to anyone. And this is what happened. So what exactly is the goal of the United States? Well, I believe the goal of the United States and Europe, NATO, is to make Ukraine the new Afghanistan. And Claire Daly had an amazing breakdown as to how this whole conflict is comparable to Afghanistan, quoting Julian Assange, who in 2011 said that it's not about the winnable war, as Paz always talks about, that it is about the war continuing perpetually. And we can just hear what she says.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, President. The goal is an endless war, not a successful war. Those were the words of Julian Assange in 2011 in relation to the war in Afghanistan. Words which could now equally apply about Ukraine. Ukraine should absolutely be able to join the EU, but on terms that don't bankrupt its people and when it's ready and when a majority of its people choose. But that certainly will not be happening while the country is an active war zone, and everybody knows it. So instead, we're artificially prolonging this war with a steady flow of heavy weapons, attacking peace efforts as appeasement. The EU is guaranteeing a stalemate and ensuring that Ukraine will never be able to choose its own path. President von der Leyen gave the game away last Friday when she said Ukrainians are ready to die for the European perspective. My God, what a deluded narcissist. The real plan here, we know candidate status is bait and a trap. The real plan is to transform Ukraine into a meat grinder, use its people as cannon fodder in an endless proxy war against Russia, with the European taxpayer footing one bill after another for the arms industry. There's nothing to celebrate in that.
And I mean, Pasta, I want to hear your take on this, but I just want to say every single thing she said is exactly on point. This is not about Ukrainians' democracy. We've said this from the beginning. They're using Ukrainians. They're going to go down to the last Ukrainian, the very last Ukrainian, and use them, as she says, as cannon fodder, as a meat grinder, in order to justify their narrative, and not just their narrative, but their military objective in the long run, which is to create this cash flow, a cash flow that the US and the EU citizens are paying your tax dollars, EU's tax dollars. Meanwhile, the economies are collapsing on themselves. You know, people think, I get some trolls that are like, oh, Russia is about to go in debt. No. Russia's doing just fine. The ruble is doing great. People are out in the restaurants. People are out in the streets. Russia's doing pretty well. When we're talking about the West and in general, of course, the West, but particularly the European Union, Great Britain, and the United States, they're not doing so hot. And it's going to get worse because they keep adding to this bill, to this gigantic bill when it comes to Ukraine. And I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I mean, it is exactly, I mean, it's everything we've been talking about for quite some time, right? It's not, they don't give a shit who wins the war, or like you said, what's going to happen to Ukrainians. Everyday Ukrainians, it's just a shame. It's a crime against humanity what the West has done to them, but they want to make sure they can perpetuate constant, endless war. And this is the way they can do it, by making sure they have a puppet government and whatnot. And I'm just very curious to see what's going to happen in the future, because there has to be something in the minds of the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin, what they're going to do moving forward with Ukraine, the remainder of Ukraine, meaning Western Ukraine, because I think it would be impossible to try and rule them, you know what I'm saying, or try to put in some type of government that is friendly to yours, because the people would just reject it over there in that part of the West, because Ukraine is one of those split, countries where the West has always been that way and the East has been different. So, once we, let's say the national community, international community, or the majority of the international community, as we see the split that's going on, I don't know if you saw the video of Putin lifting up his coffee cup and smiling at events. Yeah. And you had the Randamodi, you had Bolsonaro, you had
the BRIC.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you had that new G8 that's coming, their own G8s, the BRICS, whatnot. You're going to add maybe Mexico in there, maybe Indonesia, whatnot. But it's even if they'll recognize it, we are obviously going to have this split. So it's just, I'm very curious. When you hear Claire say this stuff, like, it's all true. What's going to happen with that country? Is it going to be forever like that crazy battle zone, that unstableness? And the United States and the West doesn't care. They just don't care. And now they've created a situation where even if they were to completely pull out from the West and they were allowed Ukraine to do whatever they wanted to do, it would take so much time before there's going to be any stability in that region whatsoever. Because the ideology that's been funded and trained is set in. Vanilla Ice is there. Vanilla ISIS is there to stay. And it's a shame, because at the end of the day, who suffers? Ukrainian people.
So the BRIC summit is kind of this counter meeting to the G7 summit, and the Argentina joined, and a lot of people got mad. Oh, how dare! This just goes to show you the opposition growing to this Western unilateral type of agenda. The same thing as the Biden democracy summit of the Americas. It's just not, it doesn't stick anymore. It's not sticking anymore. A lot of people are looking at alternative avenues. And this is specifically because of the fact that it's economically advantageous for them to do so. And so it's not just the fact that it's Russia and the fact that it's causing the United States to really go over the fact that they're no longer the unilateral bullies of the world. They don't have as much power anymore, but it's also the fact that it's economically feasible for other nations to start having relationships with China and Russia. And so ultimately, as we mentioned, I wanted to put this tweet up by Chris Legion. Ukraine is the new cash cow to replace Afghanistan. And who is, of course, feeding that? And that is the American people, the people of the European Union, the people of Great Britain. These NATO countries are using this money that should be going to the people to, of course, continue this warfare. So ultimately, that's where we're at. That's what's happening. And there's just so much developing right now too, on the just geopolitically right now. And Turkey also, is not going to sanction Russia. So, and that's huge news, because the fact that Turkey's even talked about perhaps leaving NATO. So that the fact that they've even talked about it, the fact that they're not sanctioning Russia, the fact that all of this is happening is really just shows you the shift that we're seeing. It's a real shift. Now, as far as the other side of it, right, we're always discussing the global agenda. We'll see how that plays out as well.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing that today with Xi Jinping and Putin, and the smile on their coffee mugs when they were toasting. But I said the same thing. This is like a real shift. I'm like, this is the real deal right now. It's the world is different now, and it will be different. And that Ukraine is the new cash cow to replace Afghanistan. Fam, like, it's amazing that we're allowing these still people to fucking just, not only just make new laws and operate within our Congress, people like Nancy Pelosi and whatnot. They should be in jail for what they did in Ukraine. They really should. They overthrew the government and they carpetbagged like there's no tomorrow. Nancy Pelosi with Paul Pelosi, Biden with Hunter, Joe with Hunter. It's just disgusting. Adam Schiff, they were all part of this. John Kerry, Mitt Romney. These people all deserve to be in jail, in my personal opinion, for what they did, the carpetbagging in the Ukraine. Mitt Romney, I already said him, John McCain, Lindsey Graham. I don't want to forget anybody. They were actually over there and getting involved with the other people, other countries' politics, trying to overthrow the government over there, whatnot, trying to overthrow Putin. I mean, Lindsey Graham literally going on TV saying there's no off-ramp, that Putin's got to be taken out. I mean, this is ridiculous. These people portrayed the Americans by going over there and spending all that money over there for people to kill each other over there just because they're Russians. They lied to the public, and they should be held accountable for their crimes. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you know this, fam, but Zelensky called on the African nations to join the fight to save white supremacists from Russian attacks. I had to use this tweet because it was great. And it talked about Zelensky addressed the African Union. Only 4 out of 55 invited heads of the state attended the viral session, fam. Hashtag winning again. And this is from Global Research. It says most African countries support Russia.
Again, the Pan-Africanism.
I know, right? It says Zelensky failed.
No, I was just going to say the Pan-African movement is happening.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And how they look at Russia as an ally and them coming in, whatnot. Zelensky failed meeting with African leaders. Only 4 showed up. And it says, apparently, Volodymyr green screen Zelensky's popularity in Ukraine is very low. The Ukrainian leader called for a virtual diplomatic meeting with African heads of the state, but the event failed completely. Almost all African leaders declined to participate, hampering Zelensky's plans to make the meeting a pro-Kiev or pro-Kyiv, depending on where you're from on this side of the battle, propaganda stage. Meanwhile, the Russian government's popularity is growing in Africa, where citizens take to the streets in support for this special military operation in Ukraine and ask for Russian help in combating terrorism. On June 20th, the Ukrainian president met with representatives of the African Union in order to discuss matters concerning the current conflict situation in Eastern Europe and the role of Africa on the world arena. Of the 55 heads of states invited to the meeting, only 4 attended. The other countries sent only diplomats or ministers, with the heads of state and government not willing to attend, even with the meeting being virtual. The heads of state who attended the meeting were Macky Sall of Senegal. They had Ivory Coast. They had the president of the Libyan Council, so a unstable, not even government in the Libyan Council was one of the 4. And obviously the Ivory Coast, which is a French province, and then also a representative of the Congo. It is important to note that the Sall is the current president of the African Union, which is why his presence was essential for the event to even take place. Therefore, his attendance does not necessarily mean an expression of his real desire, even more considering his recent conversations with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, in an effort to increase Russian-African cooperation, fam.
Exactly. So the Pan-African movement is Oh, sorry. You're still sorry.
No. I'm done. Go ahead. Go.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say the Pan-African movement is counter to NATO. So that's why there are a lot of African nations that are not to the and they are working on building coalitions in Africa, specifically Africa, that has been absolutely just trashed by the West, by interventionism, by resource extraction, and they are sick of it. And they frankly have been protesting in the streets. We've talked about Eritrea, we talked about Somalia, Ethiopia, and we've seen them protest NATO. And so just like in Latin America, there is a movement to have working relationships. There was more of a development today, for example, with Venezuela and Colombia. Just like that, there's also that movement there. And that movement is not fond of Vladimir Zelensky, and it's not fond of NATO. And NATO, of course, backs Ukraine. So
pretty much too, the next slide, fam, was what we talked about. And this is before the meeting, and we talked about the grain today. And this is something I'm just going to show the headlines, Oz. We don't have to go into the reading about it, but it says Africa is hostage of Russia's war on Ukraine, Zelensky says. And he was trying to use this whole thing about the whole grain and what Russia's doing with their blockade, and that they were the ones and they were the cause. And you explained how we just showed it's just not the case. So it failed miserably with him trying to meet with the African Union. It was kind of a slap in the face. You invite 55 countries, fam, and only 4 show up, and it's virtual. And 2 of them you knew were going to show up. You knew the Ivory Coast was going to show up, province of France. You know, they're going to show up there. And you knew that the Congo was going to show up at behest of the West. So no matter what, it was like a big fail. He's getting laughed off stage pretty much, Zelensky, at this point. So.
Yeah, I mean, but at least he was at the Glastonbury festival, right? That festival, that popular festival. At least he showed up there.
Let's go to this video by George Samswali. We're going to skip that one page you have there over there. I'll get to the next one. I just wanted to get a little update of what's going on Kaliningrad. And this is something that's very interesting, fam. There is an exclave, a semi-exclave, I believe it's called, because it's on part of the water, and it's bordering 2 other countries, being Lithuania and Poland. And it's a Russian province of sorts that's not inside proper Russia, but it's strategically located in the Baltic Sea, where Russia has always had food and whatnot and everything pretty much out from the port there, because their port in St. Petersburg is frozen during the winter time. So they've been using, and this was treaties when the USSR disassembled back in the days, that they still had rights to go and use a train to go through Lithuania to get all this goods and services there that could be exported from this particular small exclave. And what's going on is that NATO and the EU and the West has encouraged Lithuania to start to blockade, to stop and slow down a lot of goods and services that were being transported to Kaliningrad. And I think a lot of people thought that the President Putin going to the Kremlin, I believe at almost 11 p.m. the other night, they thought that this was a reason why, that something had happened there, but this was not going to end in a positive way if Lithuania continued to be the puppet of the West and continued with the blockade. Do you want to say anything before we roll George Samswali's little 2-minute video?
No, go ahead.
Let's roll it.
NATO and EU member state Lithuania has just announced that it is blocking by road and by rail the transit of EU-sanctioned goods going to and from Kaliningrad and the Russian Federation. The goods include coal, cement, metals, and advanced technology. Kaliningrad is a Russian exclave, home to about 1 million Russians, cut off from the territory of the Russian Federation by 2 states, Lithuania and Belarus. Kaliningrad is also headquarters to Russia's Baltic Fleet. The Russians are understandably very unhappy about what they call a blockade of sovereign Russian territory. They point to 2 agreements Russia and the EU signed, one in 2002 and one in 2004, that guaranteed the free flow of people and goods to and from Kaliningrad and the Russian Federation. The European Union has responded to Russia's complaints the way it has always responded to Russia's complaints. It has accused the Russians of lying. No, this is not a blockade. It is the perfectly legal implementation of the perfectly legal sanctions regime of the perfectly legal European Union. But since, of course, Russia is not a member of the European Union, it is not really very interested in what the European Union deems to be perfectly legal, particularly as Russia's position has always been that the only sanctions that are legal are those that are imposed by the United Nations Security Council. So will Russia try to break Lithuania's blockade? According to some in the media, should Russia try to do that, then NATO's vaunted Article 5 will immediately go into effect, all for one and one for all, and an attack on one NATO state means an attack on all, and Russia and NATO will be at war. Well, Article 5, of course, does not say that an attack on one NATO member state means an attack on all. It merely states that should a NATO member state come under attack, other NATO member states will make a decision according to what they think is an appropriate response. Moreover, implementation of Article 5 presupposes an implementation of Article 1. According to Article 1, NATO member states are obligated to resolve all disputes by exclusively peaceful means. Blockading somebody else's military base isn't peaceful means.
So there it is, fam. We have to just continue to monitor what's going on over there, but that's a serious situation. From what I understand, that in Kaliningrad, they have a lot of hardcore military weaponry over there too as well, because in the event of a war, it's strategically placed to, in other words, for Russia to hit Europe, you know what I'm saying? So it's one of those situations where it's strategically located there. There's a port there where they export a lot of goods. They've had treaties for many years stating that they can go through Lithuania, and now Lithuania is doing the bidding of the West. So I'm just hoping for the best situation, so to resolve the situation so it doesn't get out of hand right there. Because if it is a situation where right now they can use tugboats, right, or boats or shipping boats to move some of the stuff down from, I believe, St. Petersburg down into the port over there. And if they start, you know, if the West or NATO deems it a threat and they're trying to stop a blockade in which they said they can blockade stuff right now, it could get really hairy is what I'm saying over here. You know, one boat sunk, forget about it. And it could be World War III. This is a very touchy situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially having the blockade is not justified. So Russia could technically say you're violating your own agreements, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just like they were poking the bear before, they're continuing to poke the bear. And it's really, you know, I think the reason Russia hasn't done anything is because I think they don't want to start World War III. You know, like the people that do want to start World War III are the ones that are continuing to do this. And I think that's something, I agree, it's a very tenacious situation.
Yeah. Fam, Italians, I think they made you proud this weekend in their parliament. Did you see this? I mean, yeah, you did. I think I saw you share it, and then I went and grabbed it and threw it in the dock for today because I was really proud of my Italian peeps. All right, let's get the video. Beautiful. They were recognizing that we should, you know, somebody in Europe, thank God, part of the EU is standing up and saying, enough with this madness, fam. Who bet on Italy? I did.
So Russia has a metro station called the Partigiano metro station, where it has statues of all the Nazi fighters, the partisanos, and not all of them are Russian. It's like partisanos. You know, fam, the revolutionary music I played.
Yes.
The way
Bella Ciao.
To LA. Yes, fam, Bella Ciao. So there you go.
What do you got here up from The Guardian?
Oh, so it's not from The Guardian. It is from, I think Intel Slava posted this. So it is just basically showing you guys their previous verbiage about the Azov Battalion, about Nazis, about all of that, versus before the war and then after the war, or military conflict, however you want to call it. It's essentially a war. So just again, you can see how CNN, The Guardian, Reuters, Vox, and so many, the Washington Post, all just changed their tune. And I love how they put it with, of course, the blue and yellow. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yep. Once it said before the Ukraine crisis, The Guardian, welcome to Ukraine, the most corrupt nation in Europe. After the Ukraine contest, the fight for Ukraine is a fight for liberal ideals. Well, that's a little hypocritical. Reuters, before the Ukraine crisis, Ukraine's neo-Nazi problem. After the Ukraine crisis, for foreign fighters, Ukraine offers purpose, camaraderie. I said it, and a cause. And Vox, before the Ukraine crisis, a Ukraine comedian turned president is embroiled in Trump's impeachment mess. After CNN, Ukrainians are giving 2 lessons in democracy that Americans have forgotten. Wow. Before the Ukraine crisis in New Europe, it says Ukrainian president's rule becomes increasingly corrupt, authoritarian, all in caps. And then after the Ukraine crisis, the Washington Post says Zelensky, the TV president turned war hero, says Ben Stiller, right? You're my hero.
Yeah.
You're my hero, fam.
Blue Steel is dead.
Oh, Jesus.
So what I already said, right? The Turkey is not going to sanction Russia, and that was said by the spokesperson for Erdogan and the spokesman. His name is Ibrahim, and essentially he said it's because of economic reasons. If you want to put that up as it's for economic reasons that they're going to do this. It's not economically feasible to sanction Russia, and they're not stupid. And they're like, we don't want, the last thing we want is for Turkey to fall into the same vein that Europe and the States are falling into. So
yeah. I mean, it'd be what a kind of craziness it would be if Turkey moved away from NATO and joined Putin's little group and stuff. But it's interesting because the situations they have in Syria, that's just really, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Putin and Erdogan did not get along well in Syria. And Erdogan back to, once again, in the whole Armenian crisis, and so bringing them to the table. It's for Azerbaijan. So there's been a history of like butting heads, but then there's been a history of somewhat cooperation. So it's very, very interesting.
Well, for Turkey, I think it's more than just Erdogan. It's like I said, it's economic wise. It's not just about him. It's about the fact that it's just not smart anymore to really oppose Russia right now. And so I think economically they're doing the right thing. I think Erdogan's looking at this in a logical way rather than like an emotional way. And Ibrahim basically said, we have stated that we will not join the sanctions because it comes from the economic advantages. We are dependent on external energy sources. We have openly declared our position to the West. There is an understanding that sanctions against Russia will hit, first of all, the Turkish economy. We certainly do not want that. So again, this isn't anything out of loyalty, allegiance. This is just, we don't want Turkey to go in that direction, period. End of story. And it's big. It is a big thing because once again, it shows the loss of power from the West and the loss of control that they're trying to just cover up. So,
yeah. Yeah, fam. At the end of the day, you know, why would they financially slice their throats the way Europe did? Turkey is not playing games over there. And, you know, whoever's going to succeed, Erdogan, it's going to be very interesting which way he goes. So I think the Turkish election now, the West will be paying close attention to, you know what I'm saying, here moving forward. So it's going to be very interesting too as well. Maybe we should put Turkey on the list for elections to go to, fam.
Maybe. I mean, I've been there. It's a nice country. There's a lot of mixed what do you say? Like just culture. There's a Christian versus Muslim aspect, you know. I went to Hagia Sophia. It's now a church. It's now a mosque. It was previously a church. Vanessa Beeley was saying, you know, how it is a church and how Erdogan just like imposed this whole thing. And it's so there's a lot of conflict in Turkey as far as that goes, but it's its own thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Istanbul used to be where a lot of cultures and everybody used to meet, a lot of markets there in Istanbul. So much culture is there in Turkey and Istanbul. It's going to be very interesting the way forward for them. But I don't see them slicing their own throats the way the Europeans have. So we'll just pay close attention. There's a lot of things to pay. So much things are going on, fam. We have to pay attention to so much. So we'll be keeping an eye on a lot of these things, whether it be Turkey, whether it be what's going on in Kaliningrad, what continues to go on with the food crisis, Ukraine, whatnot. You're over there now, fam. So I think we'll be diving into this area and this conflicts even more over the next several months, especially since so much is going on.
Yeah.
Super Rays, fam. You ready for some?
No, but go ahead.
Guess who's first?
Trey Wright.
You better believe it. Thank you, Trey Wright, for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Arem, thank you so much, Arem. You're always so loving. You take care of us. We love you, Arem. Convo Couch is always with fire, with narrative, document, and details. Everything relevant and contextual. You guys rocks. Thank you so much. And your little dog, too. Oz. I get you, Oz. Arem also says Jimmy Dore, Fiorella Isabel 2024. What do you think, fam?
Oh my God. I can't run because I can't be president. So, but I think that would be a winning ticket.
We'll change the Constitution.
For sure. I would rather be a Secretary of State.
Yeah, fam would make a great Secretary of State. Shwari Kate, congratulations, Convo Couch. You have trolls over at YouTube. Thank you so much, Shwari Kate. And thank you to the trolls. 300 people watching over there. Jilly Love, keep everybody in line. We've got to make sure that everybody acts fair over there. Steve Sandley, Miguel H., everybody hanging out. Shwari, another worldview possible. Johnny to Emily, we love you. Thank you very much for everybody who's hanging on out at the YouTubes today, as well as the Rokfin fam. I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just wait till the Roe v. Wade section, because I think we're going to cover that from a different angle than a lot of people are covering it. Yeah. And I think, Pasta, I know you're a man, and sometimes speaking about these things is, makes guys uncomfortable. But since, I can speak on it, I'm not going to say a lot of things that people expect and think. And we're going to dive into that. But first, Ghislaine Maxwell. This is something, of course, that's kind of been on the back burner since everything's about Roe v. Wade right now. Ghislaine Maxwell, fam, is on suicide watch, right? And the media has already said, yes, but she's not suicidal. Her lawyers are actually kind of exposing the nefariousness here, because they're saying that she's not suicidal. And it's weird that they put her on a suicide watch. This is coming straight from her lawyers that are like, why are you putting her on a suicide watch? Because she was psychologically deemed okay. So, of course, we have so many jokes, right? Ghislaine Maxwell didn't kill herself. She's following along Jeffrey Epstein thing.
Hillary Clinton, I'd like to place an order, suicide hotline.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it did happen after, reportedly after she named Clinton connections. So, I mean, there's just, Steve talks about it all the time, and not to be a tinfoil hat, but there's so many people that die around the Clintons, and that's just fact. That's not tinfoil hat. So let's get on it, fam. And I know you probably want to talk about this. I remember when we were following this the Jeffrey Epstein case. That was where some of our videos went viral, where Johnny did the whole thing with the music. I mean, it was like intense. We were covering that very intensely, and then of course, we realized that they were never going to bring anything to justice, right? They like, she got convicted of sex trafficking
to nobody,
little girls to nobody. I mean, so hello, who did she? Where are the people she sex trafficked these little girls to? Oh, we'll never know. Okay, so it's that frustration, I think, that comes from this case. Yeah. So, did you want to say anything?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, so as I said, Ghislaine Maxwell is on suicide watch. This is from CNN, but she isn't suicidal. She may need to postpone her sentence, according to her lawyer. Next slide. If you want to read it, fam, probably.
Ghislaine Maxwell has been placed on suicide watch, even though she is not suicidal, and may need to postpone her sentencing, according to the letter filed on Saturday by her attorney. Maxwell, 60 years old, is set to be sentenced on Tuesday in a Manhattan federal court after being found guilty of sex trafficking a minor and other charges related to a sprawling conspiracy to abuse young girls with the wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein. She is currently being held at a federal detention facility in Brooklyn.
Damn, those are your old stomping grounds. Come on.
Hey, man, we can get J-Fod lives there now. We can ask J-Fod. That's Brooklyn ain't the same, but I just hope it's not the same prison where Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yeah. So it's just too funny. I mean, we talk about how Roe v. Wade is in part distracting from a lot of things. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people stopped asking questions, and the biggest one is, who did Ghislaine Maxwell traffic little girls to? And that hasn't been answered yet. And so now somehow she's being put on suicide watch, and nobody knows why she's being put on suicide watch, because as her lawyer said, she's not suicidal.
Somebody made a phone call, fam.
Next one.
Kill herself. She might kill herself. That's all I got to say. Like, that's what they're trying to do. Attorney Bob Sternheim said in the letter, Maxwell was abruptly removed from the general population, sent to solitary confinement, and placed on suicide watch Friday without a psychological evaluation and without justification. Fam, this stinks. This is just, like they are telegraphing their fucking move here, fam.
It really seems like they're going to do this again in front of us.
Yeah. They're going to rub it in our face.
I think these people, guys, they rub things in our face all the time. This is hardly the first, and it will not be the last time that this happens, because this is what they do. Because so many people just go straight into, oh, it's a conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. No, like this is, we've talked about the Epstein thing ad nauseum, right? But like the fact that the video stopped working, people quit, like it was just, come on. And so now you have Ghislaine, who her own lawyer admits she didn't go through a test recently, where before she was fine when she was seen by a psychologist, and now she hasn't been seen by one to be told, hey, you're suicidal. And I'm not trying to compare Julian to the situation at all, but for example, Julian Assange was evaluated to not be doing well mentally because he was in solitary confinement, because he's been away, because he has Asperger's. And so that's one of the reasons why Judge Vanessa Barister in the beginning said, oh, we can't extradite him on the grounds that the U.S. prison system is too awful, that will kill him. And so that is like something that is obvious that you can use. But to just arbitrarily make this woman and put her on solitary confinement and say she's suicidal without any sort of reasoning is at the very least extremely suspect. And that is what people are kind of mocking, because at this point, what are you going to do? Because if you talk about it in a serious way, like, oh yes, like they're going to kill her, or she didn't kill herself. People are still like, oh, it's conspiracy. Like, but I think this is one of the cases, fam, where people are like, oh yeah,
I don't know.
Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. I think more people.
A lot of people think
like
that McAfee didn't kill himself either. You know what I'm saying? So if they're just taking it with a grain of salt. Like, all right, you know, they're gonna eliminate these people. They're gonna cut out all their loose ends and make sure they can't, you know, because supposedly Ghislaine Maxwell should be holding on to some evidence that would kind of like expose a lot of the world leaders in the world. Yeah. So
I mean, and there's a reason why those names haven't come out.
Mm-hmm. Or at least the hard proof.
And so, and it's always, but there's always like that whole saying, right? If you're a killer of sorts, right? And you can't have a witness, right?
Yeah.
You can't leave a witness. So, so, you know, the lawyer said he met with her, that she's not suicidal, and etc. So, that's that. I mean, there's not much else to say. Keep an eye on Ghislaine, because she might just not kill herself, you know?
Yeah. She might not hang herself, and that's it. The last one you have is Sternheim said the psychologist evaluated Maxwell on Saturday morning and determined she is not suicidal. The attorney argues Maxwell is unable to properly prepare for sentencing. A spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York declined to comment. If Miss Maxwell remains on suicide watch, it is prohibited from reviewing legal materials prior to sentencing, becomes sleep deprived, and is denied sufficient time to meet with and confer with counsel, we will be formally moving on Monday for an adjournment, Sternheim said. So in other words, if they don't get to meet, they're going to ask for an extension and knock it backwards and try to postpone the sentencing. The last part, you said Maxwell's lawyers last week asked the judge to sentence her between 4 2/5 and 5 2/5 years in prison, saying her difficult childhood made her vulnerable to Epstein and she should not face a harsh sentence because of his actions. Do you hear this shit, fam?
Yeah. So that's what they're using, and that's what she was abused. The defense. She was abused. She was a victim. No. You could talk about the other girls being victims and having, led other girls to come in. But Ghislaine was clearly a partner in this whole thing. So whatever, that's what the defense is arguing, and that's what they're going to argue. But regardless, this is very suspect, and people should be on the lookout, because there's a lot going on right now in the world, and I think this thing took the back burner for a minute. Yeah. But this is something that you can't ignore. And I think the meme I wanted to show, right? Are we on the meme yet? The meme I wanted to show is she's the only one to have been convicted for sex trafficking kids to nobody. So nobody.
That meme's not in the slide deck, but I know which meme you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I put it. Okay. Oh well, I must have forgot. But it's hilarious. She's literally the one only one. It's insane. So that's where we're at, guys, with this trial. I mean, we've been following it for a long time, and it's just frustrating because these people are never held accountable, ever, ever, ever. It's Ghislaine is the least of like we're talking about who she knows, who she's protecting, who's not being named, the most powerful people in the world. The fact that they can get away with this, really, and you wonder why people are not trusting of the government. You wonder why people create conspiracies. Well, I mean, at this point in the last 2 years, we've known the difference between a conspiracy and a fact is like 6 months, and then that went down to 2 weeks. So,
yeah.
I'm willing to just question everything at this point because it's been one thing after another.
So let's get to a super great contribution. We have over 300 people watching on the YouTubes. Thank you so much, guys. Hit the like button, hit the share, get it out there. Do us a favor. 85 people watching on Rokfin. Thank you so much to ARAM. It says, it's too bad that the video cameras in Ghislaine Maxwell's cell won't be working. What? The corridor cameras won't be working either. And the one camera that does work, that video will just disappear, fam. It's just too bad that she's going to suicide herself. Thank you, ARAM.
Thank you, ARAM. And you're absolutely right. So
you know it's coming. You know it's coming. It sucks. Yeah. It's terrible.
Hey, and you know, it's not even about Ghislaine, the person, as much as it's about the fact that this is where we're at. I mean, we have no control over these very powerful people. And, you know, I try to like walk the line between, yes, we have some control over ourselves and what we can do, to, yes, there is a group of powerful people that are trying to really screw the rest of the world to get what they want. And that is a fact. How much nation states are fighting that remains to be seen. I think there is an opposition in terms of just nationalist type of you know, Russia. There's a little bit of that in China, although China is kind of complicated because they're not, you know, it's a gray area. And then you have obviously the global South. And so I think there's opposition, but there's also a lot of dark forces, obviously, and the connections and stuff. So the reason we're going to talk about Roe v. Wade is obviously, this affects me, obviously. But I was thinking to myself, like, I literally just moved to Moscow, and days later, the Supreme Court overturns this, and I'm just thinking to myself, holy shit, I got out. Like, I just got out because things just keep getting worse over there. And like, when you're looking at it from here, this perspective, it kind of looks like the United States is just literally
falling apart at the seams, fam.
It's just awful. And of course, yes, liberals are emotional about this. They're upset. Understandably so. In general, I understand why a lot of people are upset. I'm not going to be dismissive of it. However, people are being played. And people are being played on both ends of the spectrum. Conservatives, Republicans, liberals, leftists. But entirely. This is a hot button issue. This issue is in the front and center for a reason. They're doing this for a reason. Also, this follows the decision, the recent decision regarding gun rights, right? And so, wow, what a coincidence that somehow the Supreme Court, which is made up of 9 unelected elites that are selected by elites, or as we call them, the predator class. Do you think that they're a real court? Because they're not. We live in an oligarchy. This is an empire that is waging war with the rest of the world. It is just going on using this cash cow in Ukraine, using your tax dollars and to meet a certain agenda. Now, if you think that, what makes you think that anything is remotely safe in the United States anymore? Because it's an oligarchy, and we don't have a say as to who's selected. There's no term limits. These people are completely out of touch, right? And so just to go over what happened, of course, as everybody knows, the Supreme Court made the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. And in this decision, of course, has a lot more of an impact than what is previously thought. It's not just about Roe v. Wade. It's about what it means also for the Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment has a lot to do with privacy law. And if you read how Roe v. Wade was decided upon and the different precedents that led to it, you will figure out that it's just so much more than that. So let's see. So on June 24th, the Supreme Court basically ruled that it upheld the Mississippi law that would, of course, ban abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy, but also confirm that nearly half-century precedent overturned the half-century precedent in Roe v. Wade. And of course, it's going to leave it up to the states. And this is where it gets dodgy. And Pasta might disagree with me. Conservatives might disagree with me. Libertarians might disagree with me. There's this talk about this all being a decentralized. This is good. This is the reasoning from some. This is decentralization of power because now the federal government doesn't have a say over such a big issue. Now it's up to the states to decide. This is good. This is good. This is decentralization of power. No, it's not, because the Supreme Court decided this. That's a federal court. It's operating on behalf of the federal government. You're not decentralizing power when the states are still have less power than the federal government. You're just creating chaos in order to meet a certain narrative. You're not going to have decentralized power in an empire by the same people who have concentrated all this power. It just doesn't exist. It's just not, it's in order to have decentralized power, you have to have an entity or a state that is willing to give up power to the people. This isn't decided by the people. This was decided by a Supreme Court. This isn't like everybody voted and said, oh, we want this. That's not what happened, right? So that's just my rebuttal to Republicans. So the majority opinion, of course, was written by Justice Samuel Alito and stated that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey, Planned Parenthood versus Casey in 1992, are overruled. So not only Roe v. Wade, but Casey. And the authority to regulate abortion is returned to the people and their elected representatives. But it's not the people that it's returned to. It is the state. The state does not represent the people at this point because the people didn't vote for this to happen. So this whole thing that it's like, oh yeah, like there's decentralized power and this is up to the people now. It's not, because the states are already playing team sports. All the red states are going a certain direction. All the blue states are going a certain direction, and they're picking their teams, and their teams are made. And so now you have this whole chaotic situation going on, and it's not for anything other than fundraising, distraction, and of course, more surveillance, the expansion of the surveillance state and control. And I'm going to continue talking about that. Anything to say thus far before I continue?
Well, the state, that being the national government, has a right to hold up to the Fourth Amendment, right? And that's what they should be standing upon, is the fact is that they have a right. There's no unlawful searches and seizures. You have the right to privacy with your body, and that's what they should be upholding. You know what I'm saying? I'm so sorry, but I'm against this overturn of it, even if it is kicked back to the states. And when people think it's more decentralized, no, they have a right to uphold the Fourth Amendment, don't they? I mean, isn't that where we should be right now? There should be no unlawful searches and seizures, and a person has a right to their own privacy. That is the thing that that's in our Constitution. Abortion is not in our Constitution. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tricky situation. And I understand when the people go, oh, but a lot of these states that are protesting, whatnot, they're protesting in states where, like in California and LA, shutting down the freeway when they have abortion rights up to yin yang over here. So it doesn't make sense. So it does seem like it was meant just for a monkey wrench to be thrown into things, to cause more friction between people. But I believe personally that the federal government has the right to uphold the Fourth Amendment. That's what's in play over here. As much as you might not agree with it, that's what they have the right to do: uphold the Fourth Amendment.
Okay, so I agree 100%, Pasta. You're absolutely right. This is the Fourth Amendment is just devastated by this decision. That's what a lot of people aren't talking about. It has been shot. And a lot of conservatives and libertarians are missing that entire point entirely. So already, of course, like I said, this has started with in several states are already banning, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, Florida. I mean, again, this is just, they're playing team sports. This is already happening. You can go on to the next one, Oz. The next part, and this is of course from CBS. This article was talking about the 5 things that are happening and that will be affected by this. And no, the next one. Yeah, because I can't read all that.
Do you want me to read them real quick, or?
No, like we can go to the next one.
I can read the highlights. Just, where is abortion still legal?
Yeah, and they talk about like where it's legal. Obviously, the blue states, California, New York, the usual. And there are states that are kind of in between that have like a limit on abortion. If you guys can see that, and some of them haven't gone through the whole process. But this thing is a lot bigger than just literal abortion, because it also involves contraceptives. Because
number 2
to some people, that's what it is. What's the second one? Go ahead.
What can the Biden administration do?
Yeah, go ahead.
It says President Joe Biden said his administration is looking into executive actions to counteract the impact of the ruling. In remarks after the decision, Biden said that it was a sad day and that without Roe, the health and life of women in this nation are now at risk. Which is just a bunch of malarkey coming from the man, because they could have codified Roe v. Wade when they had the supermajority when he was the vice president. He didn't say shit about it. And we know what he said in the past about it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, he's been anti-abortion. It says the next one, supporters of the abortion rights and Democratic lawmakers in Congress have pushed the administration to make it easier for women to obtain medication abortion, which is available up to 10 weeks of pregnancy and involves taking 2 pills. Assessing whether services could be provided on a federal property, even in the states that ban the procedures, and bolstering digital privacy to protect patients. Fam.
Right. So this is where we get into the tricky part. And of course, first of all, Anita Hill, right? When you talk about Clarence Thomas, Joe Biden, that whole aspect of it, not only did the Obama administration have the ability to codify Roe v. Wade, so did the Clinton administration, and so has the Biden administration. So to blame Republicans on this is ridiculous. You have to blame Democrats as well. And this is where we start getting into the privacy laws, because, for example, contraceptive that you take could also be considered an abortion, because it's up to a certain amount of weeks. And some conservatives consider contraceptives abortion, because they consider the beginning of life to occur with the egg meeting the sperm. So that is to them life. So this is why this issue to me is so complicated, because that's a philosophical question. That's a question that people are not going to agree on. It's a matter of how you view the world. Do you view the world as to when to, the cells with the sperm and an egg come together and they make up this whole this organism, and then it's a human? A lot of people don't agree with that. They don't think that that's the same thing as a full human. So you're never going to agree on that. It's just completely stupid, because then you fall into this argument of like, oh, well, when does life begin? What is this? What is that? You have to argue it based on bodily autonomy, right? And so we know that there's been all this hypocrisy between the left on bodily autonomy. We've seen countless videos, my body, my choice, except when it's a vaccine mandate. And the same thing with the right. Well, no, because COVID was just an injection, but this is about murdering a baby. Well, that's your opinion too. So it's just this whole thing, and it's never ending. I think there's a little bit more, right?
There is. I just want to say too, as well, though. I mean, there is a hypocritical stance too, as well, when it comes to a lot of the conservatives when we talk about that. Well, how many you guys think, you know, it's a baby, you're murdering babies. Well, how often has the Republican Party voted for war and kills babies on a regular basis when they are out of the womb and stuff? And you've stood by that. A lot of conservatives went along with what happened in Iraq and the Middle East and whatnot. So, I mean, it has to be full across the board. There's a lot of vegans out there, fam, that would say, hey, listen, if you're pro-life, why are you not a vegan? You know what I'm saying? There's that. I mean, there's a legitimate argument everywhere. So there's a lot of avenues in which this can be kind of be sold or spun or talked about. Number 3 says, will people in states where abortion is illegal be able to get access to the medication abortion, meaning within the first 10 weeks in the pills, fam? Will that be okay? Will that be a thing once this is illegal in these other states? Will they still be able to do that? And will they be able to get that out to people?
And the Biden administration could work towards that. And apparently Joe Biden has said he will. But we know that, Joe Biden isn't a man of his word. He goes back and backtracks every 5 seconds. And so that's a whole other situation. And so the next one, I think.
Do you want me to read this real quick, fam, too, as well? Because it says these actions, such as traveling to neighboring states to secure the medication or having it sent to a friend's house or post office box in another location, could carry the risk of criminal charges, again, depending on the specific of the state laws. Now, Mexico, people were saying that in Mexico City, where they have, medical traveling, when people just go in there to do dental work and whatnot, that I saw somebody put up a post about Mexico City. Going into Mexico City would actually be cheaper than driving across the state line and getting it done. But the question will be, will these states make it illegal? What would they do? You know, how often will they try? I mean, can we see SWAT teams like the DEA busting women who are trying to get these pills for medication or trying to sell them underground? I mean, it's going to be crazy.
Well, the pills are going to be up to the extremities, right? Like the pills are something that is right now, it's allowed in most areas. It's the abortions. If somebody crosses state lines, and that's what I'm going to talk about in a minute. It's if they track your phone, if they look at your emails, who is she talking to? Who has she sent an email to? What are they going to use? What methods of surveillance? Because we already have an encroaching surveillance state. We have a vast surveillance state. And this is what people don't understand. Like, we already have a surveillance state. You know, it's not about the period app only. Like, that's the least of your worries. I mean, they're looking at you're basically data. Your mind as data now. Your phone, your iWatch, your iPad, your computer, everything is data. And so anything you do, unless you use a throwaway phone, they're going to find you. They're going to ping you. And this could potentially, depending on how severe each state is, give you a criminal charges for violating the state law, whichever of that state law might be. Or you could be aiding and abetting somebody that is doing that, right? Because people are saying, well, I will help you, blah, blah, blah. But and then it goes to the doctors. Oh, are the doctors going to be afraid to do perhaps life-threatening procedures where sometimes women have to abort a baby because it's the only thing they can do to save their life? That's not necessarily justified as a legal exception in many states. So that is a whole other thing. Are doctors going to be able to perform? What's going to happen to that? And to me, I just look at it, all of these things happening. You could look at that too with what happened with COVID and the mandates and all of that. Obviously, that was the problem. It's in some states it was a thing, in some states it wasn't. This is why this doesn't work, because when you're the United States of America, you're supposed to be united. You're not supposed to be, oh, I'm going to have a whole other thing here and not with things this big. So all it does is create chaos and confusion and potentially death, criminalizing of people, putting them more into an already, overextended prison system, jail system. It's just a mess. Yeah. Go ahead, fam.
No, number 4 was, like you said, will this affect the doctor's ability to provide care? And they said in many states that have banned abortions, the gynecologists, emergency room doctors, and any type of physician that takes care of pregnant people will be targeted by law and could face criminal charges if they provide abortion services. Something that you said, fam, that's just outrageous and whatnot. And we already have an overreaching security state. So now we're going to have more like a SWAT team, more security. That's the whole thing when it comes to DeSantis's voting law. Like he wants to, interact like and fund a whole nother unit to go and bust people who are legally voting or trying. It's like, Jesus Christmas, guys. Like you want more security. Every little thing we do is going to be more security, whether it becomes from the left or the right. We don't want that. And it says doctors may hesitate
surveillance.
To perform.
Yeah.
We don't want more of it. We don't want more of it at all.
Yeah.
Doctors may hesitate to perform D&C to treat miscarriages for fear someone will accuse them of performing a covert abortion. That seems like a very big scare tactic there, fam. It's like, oh, you're going to pull away the ability for the doctors to be doctors, but this is something that it could get out of hand, you know what I'm saying, for doctors just treating pregnant women, period.
And didn't that happen with the pandemic where doctors were afraid to literally give alternative treatments, is what we're going to say on YouTube, alternative treatments, and, because they were like afraid of getting in trouble, of losing funding, of losing their license. I mean, people did lose their license. This is all a result of the surveillance state. This is a result of living in an oligarchy, of living in an empire. You people are fighting on the right and left about bodily autonomy and are fighting each other when it's the government that is encroaching on both of you at this very moment. And not just through abortion or through mandated vaccines, but through the taking away of your right to privacy as a human being. And that this is a libertarian issue. This is how libertarian are you really? Like there's a lot of hypocrisy too with that crowd as well. And this is I'm talking to you people. This is not, if you want the state out of your personal decisions, who you have sex with, who, like how often you have sex with, and this is all part of it, because a few decades ago, this wasn't a thing. It wasn't, it wasn't legal for a married couple to use contraceptives. Then that was protected, and then after that, it extended to unmarried couples. And so this is crazy, but this just these specifics were never talked about until they were. And so now all of that is basically threatened by overturning of Roe v. Wade. And a lot of people don't want to see it. They're like, no, you're lying. That's not true. No, it is true, because this decision, Roe v. Wade, has several other cases that were validated when it was cemented, right? And the fact that it could have been codified and they didn't do it because they fundraise off of it, because you know how many emails people got as soon as this happened from the Democratic Party. Let's well, it's disgusting what they're doing.
They also know that their base is reactionary, emotional, and they can get them in the street this way. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like just seeing the police officers fighting the people trying to get on the freeway. And it just reminded me when we were covering one of the BLM protests, how they walked right onto the freeway and whatnot and stuff. It's like, holy cow, something happened. There was a situation with a car. I'm like, they're not going to let they're not going to let this happen again. Well, they were sleeping. And the very first day they got out there on the highway, they showed like one particular protester waving a stick at a car. So the next day they're like, okay, they're not getting on the freeway. And it was just got to be chaotic. And it's just so crazy saying, okay, this is what you're getting in the streets for right now. The thing that just drives me crazy is that you can't have a mass movement unless you have the masses. This is an area where it's tribal, where you're on one side and the rest of the people are on the other. This is not the movement to get in the streets. We'll shut it down. This is the issue where you're going to fight each other and you're not going to come to an agreement. So even when I see people that I like out there's one particular guy who goes after politicians. He goes to city councils. Now he's doing stuff on the streets and he's going after his citizens. It breaks my heart because I don't want to see us fighting each other. But the oligarch and the ruling class know how to separate us more than anything. And they play their cards and they play them beautifully, fam. Because right now we're not talking about what's going on in Ukraine with Russia and stuff and the billions we're sending over there and the people dying. We're not looking at the Pfizer drops. We're not looking at other stuff. we're looking at this, and it's all polarizing where neighbors are pointing the finger at each other and not upstairs.
Yeah, and that's by design, Pasta, because imagine, and we can't even get these people to agree on what bodily autonomy is, right? We can't get them to be consistent. Like, hello, like it's period. The government does not have a say into what like it's within reason, right? It's not like Roe v. Wade protected third trimester abortions at 9 months, 8 months, right? They'd had a specific clause. It wasn't like it was like, oh yes, you can just go and like kill your baby after it's born. That's not what it said. And it's not like if there was an infection rate where this with COVID had a 90% infection rate that nobody would want vaccines. There are exceptions to things, but overall, the government shouldn't be involved in your medical decisions, in your sexual decisions whatsoever. Why can't we agree on that? No, but they have to play team sports as to, well, my belief is this. So it just drives me crazy because we can't even agree on that. And, of course, the United States right now is going to get in the streets for this, but they will not get in the streets for high gas prices, for food shortages, for like Julian Assange en masse. Like, I mean, this is all part of it. This is what the surveillance state and what's happening is all part of this. They are trying to control you and trying to divide you with this whole issue, because it's not about abortion. I don't buy the whole leftist liberal argument that they just want more. They want more babies to work in this capitalist system. No, they don't. They want to depopulate the earth. They don't want more people. They're using this as a divisive tactic. They do not want more of us out there. So the people that are saying, they have enough mouths to feed, and they want less. They want the specific type of worker that doesn't question and all of the stuff. They don't want more people to be born and to go in this. And then Republicans don't give a shit about like the life of the baby when they vote against help for the working people too. Like it's not that the Democrats do either, but you know what I'm talking. When you talk about pro-life, what happens when a woman has a baby and they can't take care of it? Like, have you seen the foster system? What happens to kids that grow up in foster homes? I mean, it's hypocritical on both ends of the spectrum. And I think that is a large part of what they're both missing, is that this is a method of division, a method of control. I'm not minimizing what it means to women and the dangers that we just read that can occur. But I am saying that we're being played, that you are being played against your neighbor instead. And they're trying to fundraise, both the conservatives and the liberals, because the conservatives say, well, you have to vote for us if you don't want dead babies. And the liberals say, well, you have to vote for us if you want choice, which is ridiculous, because neither of that, like they just continue playing off of this one issue that people are never going to agree on. And it's so frustrating because it's going to encapsulate the rest of the goddamn year. Yeah.
It's like you said, when your people are going out there right now too as well. Are you my body, my choice? Yes. What about the mandates? No, I'm for the mandates. It's like Kim Iversen's tweet, right? She made a great tweet. Like, I can't argue with the Kimmy.
She got so much pushback.
Yeah.
She got so much pushback.
1000%. Listen, I'm glad to hang with people who think for themselves. That's why I got to say. You go, Kim. Absolutely 100% behind you. If you are, you can't be pro-choice and pro-mandate, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, like you can't be. Yeah, exactly. And vice versa.
I
right?
did it.
Like,
I got to read it because otherwise I'll fuck it up and I'll do it wrong. Here it is. Kim Iversen. She says, you can't be pro-choice and pro-mandate, and you can't be anti-mandate and anti-choice. Prove me wrong. She's got almost 4,000 likes on that. You go, Kim. She's 100% right. How can you be pro-choice and then pro-mandate? You can't.
Oh, but COVID is
It's a public health issue, fam. It's a public health issue. That's what they say.
COVID is contagious. It's a life. And so you're killing somebody. No, like You're what about that person's choice? What about the baby's choice? Like, they just give you these arguments that are neither here nor there. Like, it's you got to focus on logically what it is under the law, your body, your choice, no consistency across the board. Once you start saying, but no, come on. Like, yeah, everybody's going to have a different philosophical view on when life begins. Everybody's going to think, and I think with COVID is even easier because you can dictate how contagious COVID is and how deadly it is with science. The other one is a whole philosophical thing.
Yeah, and I just, once again, I want to point out too, we're having the wrong argument, right? Like, the debate really should be is how do we have less unwanted pregnancies? That should be the bottom line, because that's going to make both sides happy. If you're against abortion, but okay, we spend our money and our attention and our efforts and our funding working to less unwanted pregnancies, then you're going to be happy, right? And then same should be on the other side, because I mean, if there's less unwanted pregnancies, there's going to be less of a fight to make sure that abortion rights stay legal within your state and your country and whatnot. I mean, we should be concentrating where the issues really exist, because to have less unwanted pregnancies, you need a better workforce, more education, better opportunities for women, right? And if you have all that there, you're going to have less abortions across the board. Bottom line, you're going to still maintain the right for those bleeding heart crying liberals, to protect the Fourth Amendment and whatnot. Therefore, they have their choice. And then the people on the conservative side, who are very much religious and they want to see less babies die. Well, we just cracked that. We just cut the numbers of unwanted pregnancies in half. So therefore,
unwanted
pregnancies eat it too.
But unwanted pregnancies happen too, because people don't take care of it, right? So I don't really see how that entirely eliminates abortion. Eliminating abortion,
it would cut the numbers in half, right? It should cut.
But, right, but I think you're saying more sex education, more whatever, more contraceptives,
tools, everything. Yeah, more tools for testing to see if a woman, and if a woman has more choices, and if a woman's educated, has the education stronger within society for women, they'll have much more knowledges of how to take care of their body and fight all this back. They did these studies in other countries before. I believe I talked about it in Iran after their war. Well, how do they have less unwanted pregnancies? More opportunity leads better education, better workforce leads to less unwanted pregnancies. So you strengthen that to counteract what's happening on the other end.
I mean, it's economics at the end of the day. It's what you're putting into the population. If it's, I mean, at the end of the day, there's got to be more education, more this and that. And there's been a stride in that. But if you eliminate contraceptives, which is what some of these people want to do, because they're like, no, are you fucking kidding me? Then you're like, that's ridiculous. And I firmly believe this issue is being put out there right before 2024, right when everything is happening with Ukraine. I don't believe that the whole agenda is to just let it be, let people just have all these babies. I think the agenda is to start a civil war, to divide people, because if we have a civil war, you're not going to have a class war. You're not going to look up at who's really pulling the strings, as we always say, at the predator class. And so that's why this is a civil conflict that could, is dividing the country up. And what better way to exert some sort of federal expansion of the police state, the surveillance state, than have citizens go at each other's throats over a social issue? Because this is something that Terry always talks about. Women don't have the privilege of talking about abortion really in the global South. They're trying to have, conversations about the economy, trying to get paid the same, trying to have a roof over their head, feed their kids. They like that. The abortion thing is in the back burner for a lot of these economies, these societies, and they're progressing because they're focused on economic issues. This is such a divisive issue that in the United States, although we have more of a liberal viewpoint on it compared to, say, Nicaragua, it's still just something that people are not going to agree on. And although I'm fully a pro-choice person, I know that this is being weaponized. So anyway, I think we went off on a tangent.
It's okay. It says, could the ruling affect more than just abortion, fam? That was the last part of this particular section. And
Yes.
Slide number 51 says, Dobbs' case to overturn key rulings, including those that establish the rights to birth control and same-sex marriage. It was not clear that the other justices agreed, and Justice Samuel Alito, who wrote the main opinion, said he did not believe the abortion decision affected other issues. Fam, you just pointed out clearly right now, this is more than just about the abortion issue. This is about the Fourth Amendment here. So this could definitely affect other issues. It could affect other issues hardcore, especially for a mandate down the road. No?
Right. And that's the next thing, right? That's what we're going to be talking about is like, this makes it more possible because you're talking about a lessening of the right to privacy. And if you put this with everything that's happening with COVID, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, and the global attempts to deal with pandemics, I mean, it's all there. I mean, the more you take people's rights away to their own privacy, to their own bodily autonomy, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, the less people will have the liberty and the freedom, those words that a lot of conservatives love, to actually dictate over their own sovereignty, over their own person, over their own human, thought process, their own independent thought. And so we are in the middle of this. There was that meme I shared not too long ago, right? It was like Brave New World, the 1984, like Handmaid's Tale, Brazil. It was like all of the Soylent Green.
Yeah.
And it was like, you are here. And like, we're like there, we're like in the thing. And like,
yeah,
it's hilarious.
Let's get to Fee's tweet, slide number 52, Oz.
Did Oz go to the wizard?
Oz. Oz.
Is he alive? Did Oz pass out?
He passed out.
Are you serious?
He's up. Slide 52, Sleeping Beauty. You missed that one. Like Oz. I can see the Z's coming out. Slide 52, handsome. Fiorella's tweet. Go ahead.
Handsome. All right.
Take us off the screen.
Can you take us off the screen? Yeah. Come on, us. Come on.
Oh, that's beautiful.
All right. Neither party is solving your issues because both parties are two sides of the same fascist. I don't think this is the first tweet. This is my first
52, tweet. Oz, not 55.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think this is. Jesus Christ. We're killing Oz right now.
Here we are. I want to go hit my... Go ahead and read it. I'm going to go hit a button.
So the U.S. Supreme Court isn't a real court. It's led by the elite serving the 1% political class, which is why it's pure manipulation. Roe v. Wade was struck down to get the entire rabid, emotional populace to focus on this issue, not economics. And so both parties fundraise off of it. You know, we all heard that, right? While I was reading this thing.
What did it say?
I was reading this thing and then you played the thing. So
was it bam, 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 bam?
No, it was like whatever. I don't have to repeat it.
Oh,
let me know when you're done being 12 and then I will continue reading.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Next slide. So ad nauseum, I said we've repeated that the Dems could have codified Roe v. Wade, but they know they need this issue to hold over your heads. They're doing such a dismal job. The country is collapsing literally on itself, and it is. So they needed something to force people to pick them and defeat fascism. So again, this is the Democratic Party is weaponizing this. The Democratic Party is not doing great. Joe Biden also doing dismal, low approval rating. And then you have, of course, the conservatives coming in and doing this thing. Well, they're both shooting each other in the foot, actually, because this issue is so divisive. Meanwhile, the Republicans need the culture war golden hen to fundraise off of the crazy Dems who are pushing Marxism. Again, you constantly hear Republicans talking about how Joe Biden is a Marxist, which is hilarious. It's sad how easily the public falls for manipulation tactics. Look here, not at the fact that you can't afford to eat or put gas in your car. Guys, people can't afford to put gas in their car. And now we're fighting about this. I'm not saying that it's not important, because to me, it obviously has an importance, but that we are being played, right? And we are. And so neither party is solving your issues because both parties are two sides of the same fascist bird. They know this will stop people from questioning a lot of everything they began questioning, because people started questioning the COVID stuff. I mean, all this stuff is coming out. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. They've been questioning the war with Ukraine. And of course, the economics at home. People are starting to get riled up. So what do? Boom, let's throw this there and manufacture this civil conflict, because it is a divisive civil hot button issue. Same thing with the gun issue. And so in contrast, like I mentioned before, right, Latin America is developing right now. They're electing people that are going to work on behalf of the people. They're fighting for food sovereignty. They're fighting for economics, tangibles, and not symbolic or divisive social issues, because that's just not where they're at. But also because they're divisive. And so, they're looking at food, water, roads, et cetera. And I think we're going at this backwards. I think we need to focus on the economics of it, because through the economics of it, we can really focus on the, you can get to that abortion part, right? You can get to that part. Next slide, I think. So I said, for the record, while many Latin American countries are conservative on this, we can talk about Cuba, right? Cuba has legalized abortion. I'll mention Russia. I'll go ahead and mention Russia. Russia also has legalized abortion. The USSR also had back in the day. So the reality is, U.S. Americans live in an empire. And so therefore, this empire is trying to just have this agenda met. And so, in order for the empire to continue doing what it wants, it's got to keep the people distracted and divided. So that's where we're at. And I do think that I'm not dismissing what happened as something good, but I'm also thinking, what is behind this? Why now? Why doing this? Why the hypocrisy? At least people are realizing that the Democrats didn't protect anything. And I think, I wish that realization would have come via another form, but at least it's come for some people. It took this, but, and as I said, like every other woman with a certain ideology, I disagree with the SCOTUS decision, but I am not dumb enough to think such a decision exists in a vacuum away from elections, money, and power to manipulate the masses, because we live in an oligarchy. So yes, I disagree with the decision, but we also live in an oligarchy, and everything that happens in this oligarchy is done for a reason. It's not just by isolated incident, a coincidence. This is for a purpose. And then you see the AOCs. I didn't even get to put her in the folder, right? Taking advantage of this moment, trying to pretend there's some sort of warrior, there's some sort of fighter. What do? 2 seconds later, advocate to elect more Democrats, because vote harder, solve your fucking problems, right? Like, no, voting harder is not going to solve your problem. You can't vote your way out of this. People still think these people still think that they can, and people like the Squad exist to ingrain in you that you can vote your way out of this. And Joe Biden, as Pasta said, is notorious for changing his tune on abortion. And so this meme says, remember when Joe Biden voted to let the states overturn Roe v. Wade? He has been anti-abortion for a long time. So it's really rich seeing him say anything regarding this. Of course, and Tara Reid also had something to say to AOC, and Marianne Williamson, who were advocating for blue Democrats, and it's just
yeah. I got nothing to say right there. I'm going to let that one go because I don't want to start with Marianne Williamson, please.
Oh Jesus! And then the next one is the whole Republican thing, right? It's Republicans doing it. Republicans. Yeah. Elizabeth Warren, of course, so famously blaming Republicans. Obama said this wasn't a priority back in the day. Obama said abortion rights aren't a priority. Of course, under Obama, refused to codify Roe v. Wade as well. And so here we are. And now you have all the liberals clutching their pearls. How dare this Republican, blah, blah, blah. Mm. And that's, again, the hypocrisy that played to. And I think the next few slides, I just go into a little bit deeper as to the privacy, but we've talked a lot about it. So
I like this little meme over here you have. It says, time to control women. Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, eliminates constitutional right to abortion. Time to send a fundraising email. Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, eliminates constitutional right to abortion. It's like each side just takes advantage of whatever's out there and stuff. It's almost like it's WWE scripted wrestling.
It is. Yeah. I feel like it is because this is the United States. I mean, we have Zelensky constantly talking. I mean, this actor, right? I mean, people talk about Trump. Well, there's Trump, celebrity. You have the celebrity culture. You have the theatrics of Congress, AOCs, the influencers. I mean, it is WWE, fam. I think WWE is more genuine.
Jeez.
And this person said the U.S. is now decades behind authoritarian communist countries and reproductive rights. The USSR decriminalized abortion in 1920 and 1955. Cuba decriminalized it in 1965. Or is that 95? 65. East Germany legalized it in 1972. China legalized in 1988, and then Vietnam 1989. So, I mean, same thing with healthcare, right? It's the same thing. It's like this is kind of like it goes hand in hand, the situation. But I mean, you know, and that's the thing. Like, it's somebody's choice, what to put in their body, what to do with their body. You don't have. Nobody's telling anybody to get an abortion. Just the same way, nobody should tell somebody to get a vaccine that is not necessary. That is not saving their life. That is not, you know, doing what they said initially, and then they went back. It was supposed to do. So again, it's the same premise. So yeah, that's that.
Sam, do you want to get your next tweet over there? I can do it. I can do not this one. The next one, Oz. I can do it in my Richard Nixon voice for you if you want.
Yeah, Sam.
No, the one before that says one thing is clear: liberals are hypocrites about that one. About bodily autonomy for pushing vax mandates for COVID, and conservatives are hypocrites for saying they're pro-life when they don't care what happens after a baby is born. You live in an oligarchy that manipulates you against each other.
100%. I mean, I think they're both hypocrites, and I wish people would stop. I wish people would be consistent in that. You don't have to do it. You don't have to agree, but be consistent if you're talking about bodily autonomy on both ends. And then the next one is Andrew, our friend Andrew's tweet, right? And this is what we were talking about before. We kind of get a little bit ahead of ourselves, but this next article that I'm going to write goes into it a little bit deeper. And what did Andrew say, fam?
Andrew said, nuance is dead. Roe v. Wade also codified that the federal government could not medically infringe upon individuals' Fourth Amendment privacy. Without Fourth Amendment privacy applied to personal medical decisions, the door is wide open for a federal vaccination mandate.
Right. And so going into this a little bit deeper, there was an article that was written before this decision took place, right? Yeah. And if you just want to read the highlighted part, fam, that article.
Okay, it says, if Roe is overturned, criminal investigation into women's reproductive decisions enabled by modern technologies and sensitive, intimate data, these technologies capture would constitute a unique extension of the state's power of observation and coercion. This new data-driven era in which the court stands poised to re-empower politicians to criminalize both women's reproductive decision makings and the provision of medical care does not represent a return to the way of life reminiscent of the 1960s. Today's communication technologies and service will enable government surveillance of the details of a woman's lives to a degree never seen before. And the explicit protections of the Fourth Amendment offer little or no meaningful protection against this surveillance. How conspicuously 21st century technology will privilege the interests of the state over the protection of privacy interests should law enforcement be empowered to investigate the crime of seeking, obtaining, and providing an abortion, and how substantial Fourth Amendment protections would be against the privacy intrusions inherent in the investigation of crimes premised on a woman's reproductive decision.
Yeah. I mean, so this again, like just reiterating the point that this is also about the Fourth Amendment. This is the state gaining power over your personhood. And don't think for a second that just because it's woman, it's not everybody else. It's going to be, if it's a woman and a woman's a human being, do the math. It's going to extend to everybody else. And that is something that's not being talked about enough at all from this whole situation. This is about control over you as a person. And if we don't fight that, if you say you are anti-mandate and your religious vision of what a person does, and you're trying to control what a person does, you're not really you're not really for bodily autonomy, because it's like, wait a minute, like that person can do what they want. There are people out there who go and rape people, who go and kill people. They're going to do it regardless of what you believe in.
Yeah.
And so if somebody wants to get an abortion and it's actually legal, you have more control. This is why I'm not with the whole Pat Sock anti-drug thing, because to me, legalizing drugs, legalizing euthanasia, legalizing certain things allows more control. This is why I'm not for banning guns, because guess what? You ban guns, they're going to exist. You ban drugs, they're going to exist in the black market. They're going to exist in the underground. It's going to be less likely to control. If you want to regulate things more, if you're one of those people that wants to regulate things more, like banning something is not, it does the opposite. And so what's going to happen is it's going to create this whole other black market that's not only going to kill people and put people in more trouble, but it's just going to cause the state to continuously decrease our rights. And that is something, again, to point out. And they talk about the age that we're in. We're not in the 60s anymore. We're in this technocratic age where everything we have is on our phones and our computers, and we're not going to be able to really hide if somebody wants to do this. It's going to be very difficult. And the criminalizing of this act is going to set a precedent for any other privacy issue in the future, not just abortion or pro-choice.
Yeah.
I think the next one I wanted to read, I think it says, okay, so it says the right to privacy means anything. If the right to privacy means anything, it is the right of the individual, earned, married or single. Oh, okay, to be free from unwanted governmental intrusion into matters so fundamentally affecting a person's as a decision whether to bear or beget a child. And Roe followed the next year, of course, with acknowledging that the right to privacy encompasses a woman's decision to terminate a pregnancy. Notably, Alito's rationale in Dobbs which he is confident will usher in a return to the Halcyon Pass of a more legitimate and historically supported reading of the Constitution that preceded Roe, actually jeopardizes Griswold as well. So there was this law, this case called Griswold, where they were talking about privacy. And so this, again, Roe involves Griswold as well. So again, Roe v. Wade had so many other things that it encompassed, and it wasn't just abortion. If you want to read the next one, Pasta.
What slide number is it?
It's the one that's
70. Those who search for information about abortion on the internet, looking, say, for facts about medication that can induce an abortion, must also be cognizant that their search history can place them under suspicion. So in other words, they're saying, fam, if they start looking for stuff online, the security state who have the keys to the kingdom on the other side could be spying on them and flag them. Purchasing mifepristone and misoprostols online would also create digital evidence. Indeed, just paying for an abortion in anything but cash, whether it be Venmo, Apple Pay, credit card, check, or using health insurance, leaves a digital trail. A sociologist explained, it is difficult for most people to live their lives and fully withdraw from the use of digital communications technology services and platforms generating the data that will provide leads and telltale signs, what prosecutors call evidence, about women seeking or obtaining abortions and those providing abortion services. You want me to read the next one? Okay.
So I mean, it's essentially what we're talking about. Like, it's going to cause a lot of incrimination, and again, it's like, okay, great, okay, well, I don't get an abortion then, okay, but what if now that precedent is set? Next time there's another case, well, this person wanted to use a contraceptive, or this person wanted to sleep with this person, and so now that person must have been involved in a crime. So now we have the ability, we have a precedent said where they don't need a warrant, because it's going to go into the warrant situation where, yeah, technically you're supposed to get a warrant, but with the way the technology is working, there are third-party companies that can find information about a person without a warrant. And a lot of law enforcement has been using these third-party companies to do that. So you can circumvent around getting a warrant now. And we've seen that, of course, with the Patriot Act. We've seen Edward Snowden talk about the NSA and how they've wiretapped people. This is nothing new, but this is just another avenue to allow the expansion of the surveillance state.
Yeah. The next one pretty much piggybacks on the same thing, fam, too, as well. That, you know, this is just without the Fourth Amendment there, you're just going to be open for them to come in at any single time. And you can't get away from a lot of their digital payments. They're moving you more into digital payments, whether it be Apple Pay and whatnot. So, yeah, it's more of the same. Do you want me to read or no?
No, that's okay. I mean, it's more of the same if you guys want to take a look at it. I mean, the issue is a hugely a Fourth Amendment issue. The issue is not just about women's right to choose. It's so much more than that. And a lot of people,
conservatives need to be watching and paying attention to this stuff, fam, too. Yeah. Because they just think it's, oh my God, we're going to save more babies this way. And yet they just pretty much let the devil come inside their house because they've given up their Fourth Amendment, their right, you know, to protect their privacy to unlawful searches and seizures. And what you were showing on the other side, if anybody's just looking at information, they could flag them and then put them in some type of group, some type of list, and they'll be watching from the other side anytime they're trying to obtain any information when it comes to abortions.
I feel like this was a two-pronged thing. I'm going to venture to say this isn't about abortion with what they're doing. This is about expanding the surveillance state. And the reason I say that is because they don't want more babies. They don't want more people. What they do want is control over the population, and the excuse to continue expanding that control over the population, expanding the surveillance state, expanding the ability to censor somebody, to stop movements, right? To stop people from moving. Yeah. And also the other prong of this whole thing is creating chaos, creating division within the population with people who should be on the same side, if you're on the same side of bodily autonomy, but creating enough of a cultural division where the ideology takes precedent over the consistency of the logical law and the matter. And so then they're fighting each other. And then, of course, you get to continue expanding the surveillance state. So this is, I think, a very Machiavellian action. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's happening in this very moment. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's happening right before the 2024 elections. And there's fundraising and all of that. That's just the surface level of it. But ultimately, this is about controlling not just women, but controlling people and controlling and being able to spy on them and being able to have the elimination of privacy, the elimination of choice. And that, of course, we have already been warned by Joe Biden that there's going to be another pandemic. So I mean, I think the thing, I don't know what else to tell you.
Well, yeah. The thing to really take from this whole situation too, as well, is that you can see how both sides are very controlled based on their emotions. They're thinking from their emotions. Yep. The conservatives that think they want a big victory here in court with this situation, they're thinking on their emotions. They're not seeing the nuance in it, and what this means for the Fourth Amendment, and what this means for them down the road for allowing this to happen. So, I mean, it's this is something that's going to impact. It's just it's and then seeing the little progressives and liberals get on the street for this. It's like, hello, how about the death of a free press and Julian Assange? Get out in the streets. It's how about sending all this money to a proxy war in Ukraine and stuff? But instead, they get these idiots to get their Ukraine flags in their bio and get them on the streets actually marching for a proxy war from the military-industrial complex. So, I mean, it's been crazy all around, and this just leads to more craziness right here. This just adds to the craziness we've seen across the board in the last several years, fam.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total disaster.
Shit show.
I get so frustrated seeing the right cheer for this, because they're completely missing this point. And they're usually the ones that are able to spot like this sort of type of, constitutional caveat, this sort of thing. But they're so ingrained in their ideology that they are, and there are exceptions. There are some people that aren't, but what I've been seeing is this sort of like hyper focusing on, oh, we got a victory and we're making the liberals mad, so let's be happy. And on the other end, it's like, oh, these terrible, terrible Republicans and blah, blah, blah. And and my body, my choice, but completely ignoring the vaccine mandate aspect of it. And I think the women, it's kind of funny. The abortion, the pro-choice people are talking about privacy and bodily autonomy. It's these things that we have talked about when it comes to the pandemic. Now that the language and the surveillance state, things that they don't ever talk about, they're talking about now, but for this. Yeah. And it's just one aspect. This is just one consequence of the surveillance state. This is just one aspect. There's so much more that they control too with it. So they're both screwing each other right now because they should be on the same side.
So Whitney Webb wrote about this months ago. Our bodies are the new battleground. That's been very safe U.S. labs. They are very safe U.S. labs. I don't know what you're talking about. If anything happens, it's classic Russian moves to do what they're going to do. OTR
Why did
trucker.
Putin got rid of overturning Roe v. Wade.
Right, that was Putin's fault. States' rights on abortions, no states' rights on guns. These decisions are comical attempts to energize the base. And OTR trucker, they are, but sometimes they do work, and it's almost masterful the way the oligarchs play each other, each one of us against each other. And we need to have nuanced conversations. I'd like to see people have conversations across the board on this one, even though they're very emotional about it. We need to get across to some people on both sides of the aisle how this affects all of us, especially when it comes to the Fourth Amendment. Show tomorrow, fam. I'm trying to solidify a guest right now. Can't say who it is until we get the validation on it and they confirm the confirmation. Hopefully that will happen soon. But we will be talking about a lot of things that are going on, fam. The FDA tomorrow is having another advisory committee online early in the morning, and they're going to talk about whether or not, fam, they should just be able to simply, this is the big pharma companies, simply be able to switch out the mRNA part of the vaccine and just replace it with something that's more up to date on the Omicron variant and whatnot. The only problem is they don't want to go through any trials and tribulations. So they're just going to see if they could just switch it out. Like say, can you remove my tomatoes and add pickles? Yeah, sure. That's what they're trying to do tomorrow. So we will be paying close attention to that. There's a lot of stuff to talk about on the COVID front that we haven't been able to get to. Well, tomorrow will be that day, fam.
Wow, fam. I'm excited. Yes, there's a lot of things happening right now, a lot of things that we can't talk about on YouTube. So that portion of the show tomorrow will be on Rokfin only.
Yes.
So be sure to look at that. And yes, and then we'll be back tomorrow and I will have better internet. So thank you guys for watching.
I just got news that I'm going to be on Jimmy Dore today, by the way. Talk a little bit about Colombian elections. So,
oh, nice.
So that's going to happen. I just got the text on that. So yeah, hopefully we can go over there and have some fun, talk about elections.
Nice. I am excited. I am so glad you are going to go on there, tell some truth. Make sure to look at what happened between Maduro and
Gustavo
Petro today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I will. And yeah, so that's it for tomorrow. We'll see you here. So for Pasta Jardula.
Fiorella. Oh, and before we go, I just want to say, if any of you have a time to make little video clips for us, please do. I know you guys asked for it on the morning show, but we need it for this show too, because we don't have time.
Yeah. I've been trying to get some.
That would be great.
And I haven't found any yet. So everybody's committed, fam, in a lot of these colleges to go do the big stuff. They want to work at a big studio. It's like, yo, the little studio is where this work is going to be out continuously. So hopefully we can find somebody in here, make some cuts and whatnot, because we need a lot of help across the board. It's hard doing it on a budget that's small, especially when YouTube still has us demonetized now, fam, 19 months.
And counting.
Yeah.
So yes, if anybody knows of somebody or it's just like little video clips of our show, like Twitter clips or whatever. Yeah. I see some of you share a lot of them from other people. But if you could do some for us, or if you just message us at the convocouch@gmail.com, please let us know. Okay, that's it. Thanks. Bye. Love you guys.
Say hi to Vladdy Daddy for Pasta Jardula.
Fiorella.
And Oz, who's awake now on the ones and twos.
Oz, where's my Russian coffee? Come on, I gotta sell it here in Russia because they'll love it.
Wow. Ooh, stop.